Yeah, like I don't know where that comes from. Sometimes I think it's like guilt where people make it seem like you're wrong for making money on your business. It's a very weird thing. It's as though some people really don't understand business, but people do understand the basics of business, which is I have to get something at a cheaper price or I have to make it myself and I have to cut out a lot of middle people, and then I have to sell it to you at a higher price, and I have to be able to make a profit to keep the engine running and to, maintain and grow. So people act like they don't understand the basis of that, and sometimes they will try and make you feel guilty about like raising the price or making it make sense. And so I kind of just go back to this attitude. One of my previous business partners gave me some really good advice with another one of my brands where I was trying to figure out just pricing, which is just a tough thing because you have your cost and then you have perceived value, which I learned a lot of through like domain flipping. But perceived value is very, very important because your cost is your cost. If you have to pay for labor, or even if you are doing the labor yourself, there's a cost. If you have your supplies, you have your inventory, you have a lot, and you have to calculate what it takes to make that. And then you have to raise the price. You also have to cover yourself with legal things and taxes. So I mean, the best advice that I can give is like be thoughtful about your pricing. I don't think it's so cut and dry where you're like, everybody does this and I just want to fit in. I think it is important to like know the market. But ultimately you have to just really break down your cost, how much money you're trying to make. This is where really getting into the books and getting into the numbers. And if that's not your strong suit, like there are so many really great tools online. There are so many tools that can help you figure out profit margins and how much you're making and just like some of the basics, you don't have to get like super overwhelmed, but you have to know your numbers. I mean, you have to know when you're cheating yourself, because and then you also have to know, hey, sometimes I can cheat myself, not cheat myself, but sometimes I can take a little bit of a perceived loss or do something for free or do something as a trade-off or whatever, but it has a higher value. So you may, the mayor's office is having something and you call and sponsor and say, hey, we want to bring X amount of dollars, or X amount of product or this or food or catering or this for all of your guests. The only thing that we ask is that, maybe when we're there, we get to take a few pictures with you and few pictures of the people having fun. We'll share the pictures with you as well, so you can use for your social media. And yeah, we just want to come in as like a little mini sponsor, nothing distracting, but yeah, we just want to come in, and something like that, you might allot $500 for, you might allot $250 for, $1,000 for, but that could have so much of a return. You may get called on again to work with that particular office or that organization. You may have a heavy hitter that attends the event that is just wild. You may have an investor. You may have a future client, or if anything, you'll just get good press. I mean, it's so much. So like when you're marketing and when you're thinking about stuff, don't be afraid, like think outside the box of what you're trying to do. But yeah, don't let anyone make you feel guilty about your costs. Be thoughtful in figuring out what that number is. Bring someone else in, and then do a little poll. Do a survey. And don't do these tests and don't do these surveys with your friends and family. it is what it is. If you're in partnership with someone, it's a little different. I'm in a relationship, and I've been with my partner for 3 years, and this is a business we're going into together. So, interesting situation, sometimes that works for people, sometimes it doesn't. It works for us right now, and I don't feel like it distracts or takes away from the relationship. I think it adds layers to it, and it's fun. It's fun building something with someone. But regardless of what your situation is, if you're in a situation where it's like, hey, we've got to talk about business and we've got to be honest, you just have to put it all out there. That's the same way if you may be going into business with a good friend of yours or a family member. You have to keep that in mind. But ask for like tests that you're doing that you really want to try to isolate, maybe a design or a flavor or a menu item or a look of your logo, whatever you may be doing a test for or a survey for. Don't use friends and family. Save yourself the headache. You may conduct the test with, like in my situation, me and my partner, we're going to conduct the test, and we'll have testing that we do throughout because she's a chef. And so, for me, like, this is a sidebar, but it's not really a sidebar because you're listening. So you're here for it. We had to kind of find a balance with also understanding like ourselves and then what the other person is just good at. And so that's also an important part about any business and going into business with friends or family, or even just a straight up business partner. You got to be able to communicate. You got to be able to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And if you are like the primary person who may have started it, you have to know when to let go and when to step back and let your partner take over with the area that they're correct in. I handle a lot of elements of the organization, the business planning, basically all of the business operations. My partner does a lot of financial, she does a lot of financial stuff as far as our equipment, our supplies, marketing, everything that we need to keep the engine running and to have our lives running. And I do things here and there to also keep things running. So we work together in that effect, but you got to know when to step back. So I have to know when to be like, I already have a lot of stuff on my plate in that vein. You're a chef, you know flavors, you know taste. That's that's you. That's what you do. And again, if you listen to a lot of Gary Vee like I do, and I'll be mentioning him a lot on this channel because he's one of my faves, but if you listen to him the way that I do, you understand, hey, you got to delegate. You got to find the best people in those areas, and you're still a part of it. You're still moving with it, but you got to find the best people in those areas, designate, and keep it moving and keep it going. But you have to know when you need to step to the side. You have to know when that's somebody else can execute that better. And that's not always an easy thing, but it gets better and it gets easier. And the more you start letting some things go off of your plate, especially as you transition to a boss, a owner, going from employee to employer, you have to be able to stop and say, okay, you handle that and you be accountable for it. So for me, I kind of use that as like my gauge, if someone is qualified. And right now, I mean, we're very, very small. It's just us. And, it's really just us right now. But once things start going, it'll branch out with a few family members. But if you're going to do it, if you're going to take it over, you take it over, win or lose. That's all. Because I don't think that you should micromanage. So when you hand over a project, you hand it over, period. And they have to be responsible. And so it's really helped me to relinquish some things off of my plate. And it'll help you too, because it's not going to end with just your business partner. It's going to be your employees. It's going to be some of your strategic partnerships, depending on what business you're in. It might be your sponsors. It's always going to be a point where you have to be able to communicate, and a point where you might have to take a little bit of a step back and let someone else on your team who is a little bit more of an expert in that area, let them take over. And so that's just what it is. But yeah, that was it. Don't let people make you feel guilty about your prices. Figure it out, get your prices, give them a moment to see if they work. You have to give things time. Like when you're testing out demographics, when you're testing out learning your customer, knowing your customer, you have to give things time. You can't just test it out for 1 month and be like, oh, it doesn't work. Now, there's different times for different things, and I think you'll kind of find your own way with learning. Again, I think the entrepreneur journey is very much a journey of self-discovery, but you'll figure out yourself where, and I'm still on my journey, which is going to be interesting to see how things play out. But you're going to kind of figure out your patience too. Like, okay, I typically can try things for about 6 to 8 months and then I let them go. Or I can typically do, or longer or shorter. Like, it'll just depend. I'm sure if you spoke to 200 entrepreneurs and asked them with different industries, this actually would be a really fun test. I geek out about business because I like it so much. But I love it, but it's just, you could do a test like that and ask, hundreds of entrepreneurs, how long do they test certain things in certain markets? And I wonder what those numbers would look like with different industries. Some industries with tech and even, in the medical industry and things like that, things have to really cycle. Like, things have to cycle years, sometimes decades, to see if something works or not. And then you have influencers who can literally run a Facebook ad for a couple weeks or a couple months, some even a few days, because they're pumping so much money in the machine and they can get the answers that they want. So it's interesting, depending on what you want to spend, depending on the platform that you're using, depending on your industry, your product and or service. How long do you let things test in the field? I think that would be a really, really fun test to conduct. But yeah, you're going to have to conduct these tests. I'm actually working on organizing a test for our business. So this series is really transparent. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of that with you guys in the upcoming weeks. I do videos. I do a podcast every day. So yeah, it's a lot more where that came from. I just wanted to share that with you guys really, really quick. Yeah, until then, thank you.